I never imagined I'd end up as the neighborhood's unofficial watchdog, but living next to Margaret Hensley, Marge the Tyrant, as the whispers called her, changed everything. Oakwood Grove had been a quiet, tree-lined haven when I moved in 7 years ago, a place where people waved from porches and kids rode bikes until dusk. That was before Margaret sank her claws into the Homeowners Association. For 6 years, she'd ruled as president, transforming our little community into her personal fiefdom. At 64, with a silver blonde bob, so sharp it could have doubled as a guillotine blade, she carried the HOA handbook like a holy relic, quoting bylaws with the fervor of a preacher. Her reign was absolute, her word law, and her clipboard a scepter of doom. My troubles with Margaret started 2 years back when my older sister, Ellen, moved in with me. Ellen was 52, fiercely independent despite the early onset dementia that had begun to cloud her mind after a car accident left her widowed. She could still cook her famous lasagna and argue politics with the best of them, but she needed reminders for her meds and someone to keep an eye on her wandering spells. I'd build a small ramp at the back door to accommodate her occasional use of a walk chiropractical fix, barely visible from the street. But Margaret descended like a hawk spotting prey. Section 9, Clause 14. She barked that first day, standing on my doorstep in a crisp blazer, her pen tapping her clipboard like a metronome. No unapproved structural modifications to exterior facades. This ramp is an eyesore, Daniel Carter. It's for Ellen's safety, I said, keeping my tone even. The ADA trumps HOA rules, Margaret. You know that. Her lips pursed into a thin, sour line, her hazel eyes narrowing. I'm well versed in federal law, Mr. Carter. But procedure is procedure. You didn't file Form 27B for architectural review. The board will need to assess this situation. She glanced past me into the house, where Ellen sat humming by the window, oblivious to the storm brewing outside. I filed the form that evening, but I knew Margaret wouldn't let it go. She never did. For weeks, she hounded me with petty citations. My mailbox was 1 inch too close to the curb. The birdhouse Ellen had painted a cheerful yellow thing violated some obscure color palette rule. Once, she measured my lawn with a ruler and fined me $50 because the grass was a 1/4 inch over regulation height. Ellen found it hilarious. That woman's got too much time and not enough soul, she'd say, chuckling as we watched Margaret patrol the block like a general inspecting troops. I'd laugh too, but the constant nitpicking wore me down. Then came the night that changed everything. I'd been out late, covering a shift at the hardware store where I worked, when my phone buzzed with a call from the hospital. Appendicitis, they said. Emergency surgery. I called my friend Tom from across the street to check on Ellen. He promised to stop by twice a day, but his job as a paramedic kept him stretched thin. The surgery was supposed to be quick overnight at most, but an infection set in, and I was stuck in the hospital for 4 days, groggy and useless, tethered to an 4-drip. When I finally dragged myself home, the house fell off. Ellen was pacing the living room, her hands twisting the hem of her sweater, her eyes darting like a trapped animal's. "Danny, where have you been?" she mumbled, her voice shaky. I dropped my keys on the counter and knelt beside her. "I'm here now, Elle. You okay? Did you take your meds?" She frowned, her brow creasing. "The lady took him. Said they weren't allowed." My stomach dropped. "What lady, Ellen? Who took your medicine?" "The one with the papers," she said, pointing vaguely toward the window. She came in, poked around. Said the pills were bad news. I bolted to the kitchen, where Ellen's pill organizer sat on the counter. It should have been half empty by now, her Aricept for dementia, her beta blockers for her heart, but the slots were full, untouched since I'd left. Tucked inside was a note, scrawled in Margaret's precise, angular handwriting. Unapproved substances confiscated per Section 17, Clause 3, hazardous materials. Board review scheduled for Friday. I stared at the paper, my pulse hammering in my ears. Margaret had broken into my house, rifled through my sister's things, and stolen prescription drugs medications Ellen needed to stay stable. My hand shook as I dialed Margaret's number. Voicemail. "Margaret, this is Daniel Carter," I said, forcing calm into my voice. You took my sister's medication while I was in the hospital. That's theft. It's dangerous. Bring them back now, or I'm calling the cops. 20 minutes later, the doorbell chimed. Margaret stood there, arms folded, her expression a mask of smug authority. No need for dramatics, Mr. Carter, she said coolly. I conducted a wellness check after reports of erratic behavior at your address. Neighbors were concerned about your sister's condition. I found substances that require verification. You broke in. I snapped my restraint fraying. You stole her prescriptions. Where are they? She tilted her head, unfazed. They're secure in my residence until the board confirms their legitimacy. We have a zero-tolerance policy for narcotics. That's when I remembered the security camera discreet little device I'd mounted above the back door after the Ram fiasco. Margaret didn't know it was there, silently recording every move, every word. Last chance, Margaret, I said, my voice low. Give me Ellen's meds. She needs them. She smirked, a glint of triumph in her eyes. File the proper request, and we'll review it Friday. Oh, and those tacky string lights in your yard? Another violation. Fix it. She turned on her heel and strode off, her heels clicking against the pavement. I didn't hesitate. I pulled up the camera footage on my phone. There it was. Margaret letting herself in with a key god knows how she'd gotten it, snooping through the kitchen, opening the pill organizer, pocketing the bottles with a satisfied nod. The audio caught her muttering, "This'll teach him to respect the rules." I saved the video and called 911. The police arrived fast. 2 officers, a wiry guy named Officer Hayes and a no-nonsense woman, Detective Laura Brooks. I showed Brooks the footage while Hayes took my statement. Her jaw tightened as she watched. This is breaking and entering, theft, and given your sister's health, possible elder abuse, she said, her tone clipped but steady. We're heading to MS. Hensley's place now. You can come, but stay in the carway. Need those meds back ASAP. We rolled up to Margaret's house, a pristine colonial with rose bushes so perfect they looked plastic. From the back seat of the cruiser, I watched Brooks and Hayes knock. Margaret answered, her face shifting from irritation to panic as Brooks spoke. She tried to slam the door, but Brooks blocked it with her boot. They disappeared inside, and I sat there, fists clenched, counting the minutes. 15 later, they emerged. Brooks held a plastic evidence bag with Ellen's pill bottles along with a handful of other items I didn't recognize. Margaret trailed behind, wrists cuffed, her composure shattered. She spotted me through the window and lunged forward, shouting, "You'll regret this, Carter. I was safeguarding this community. My attorney will bury you." Hayes handed me the bag. Found these in her study, locked in a drawer, he said. Plus some jewelry, a watch, and a few other things that don't belong to her. Looks like she's been busy. We'll need a full statement at the station, but get your sister sorted first. I nodded, clutching the meds, and raced home. Ellen was calmer once she took her pills, her confusion easing as the familiar routine clicked back into place. By nightfall, the neighborhood was buzzing. Texts flooded my phone, shock, outrage, and a few I told you so's from folks who'd long suspected Margaret's power trips hid something darker. Tom stopped by with a six-pack, shaking his head. She took my granddad's pocket knife last year, said it was a weapon during a porch inspection. Guess it's time to check the evidence locker. The next week, an emergency HOA meeting packed the community center. The vice president, a gruff ex-cop named Ray Sullivan, took charge. Margaret's chair sat empty, a silent testament to her fall. MS. Hensley faces multiple charges, Ray announced, his voice cutting through the murmurs. Breaking and entering, theft, possession of stolen goods, and elder abuse. The boards removed her as president, effective immediately. She's also liable for all legal costs tied to her actions. Our bylaws don't cover criminal behavior. The room erupted in cheers. One by one, neighbors stood. Mrs. Delaney, 80 and frail, said Margaret had taken her late husband's cufflinks after a dispute over her rose trellis. A young couple, the Parkers, revealed their missing heirloom brooch swipe during a row over their porch swing. All of it had turned up in Margaret's house, a hoard of petty trophies from her reign of terror. 3 days later, I was unloading groceries when a sleek black SUV screeched to a stop in front of my house. Margaret climbed out, wild-eyed, her pristine bob a tangled mess, her makeup streaked. She waved a sheaf of papers like a battle flag and stormed toward me. "Do you know what you've done?" she hissed, shoving the documents in my chest. 9 counts 9 of theft plus elder abuse. My real estate license is gone. My husband's filing for divorce. I could get 7 years, Daniel. 7 years and $20,000 in fines. I stepped back, keeping my cool. "You stole Ellen's medication, Margaret. You broke into my home. What did you expect?" Her face twisted, a mix of fury and desperation. "I was upholding standards. 6 years I've poured my life into this place, 6 years, and you've destroyed me. My reputation's in tatters. My lawyer says I'll be lucky to get probation." A small crowd gathered Tom, the Parkers, Mrs. Delaney watching silently. Margaret's voice broke as she noticed them, her bravado crumbling. "The board's suing me for $30,000 in legal fees," she whispered, staring at the papers. "Everything I built gone." She looked up at me, eyes hollow, then turned and shuffled back to her car, a shadow of the tyrant she'd been. Weeks later, I heard she'd taken a plea, 2 years probation, community service, and restitution. Oakwood Grove exhaled, the tension lifting like fog. Ellen still hums by the window, her birdhouse back in place, and I've learned to keep the camera rolling just in case. If you were the one in this story, how would you react? Would you stand up and fight back, or accept the unreasonable pressure and control from the HOA? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe, like, and share this video with more people. Your small action gives us the motivation to keep bringing you more intense and engaging stories. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.